that she requested to start with.
Okay, you two, this
Because
is
she
your
has
resolution.
what?
I can't hear.
Legislator Petit has to be somewhere, and she has one that she wanted to speak on, so I said I would take it out of order. So that resolution is Resolution 421, the Linear Park Eminent Domain Public Hearing. Legislator Petit, did you want to comment?
I do. This did not come in front of DPW, and it did not come in front of Ways and Means. We did not get a list of the 11 properties that they want to take through eminent domain. Originally, there were only 3, and that concern was raised when we first questioned the eminent domain, and they said the 3 properties were very willing to work. It had been the larger Ulster Savings. And my concern is we had been warned ahead of time that if we pulled up the track, that based on the original agreement, the easements would disappear and go back to the original property owners. Now we're looking at taking property through eminent domain. I don't do eminent domain, especially not for a small section for one municipality. If it was something large, if it was a water supply for the county, or a bridge that connected an island, that would be different. But and like I said, I'd like to get the names and owners and the SBLs of these 11 properties.
Legislator Nolan?
So this is a different eminent domain than the one with the 3 large property owners. This is not the Ulster Saving Banks one. This is a section of the corridor in which there are multiple small parcels. They were known to be 11 from the beginning. They are parcels where when you try to find the property owner, there's no living descendant that still owns it because it was such a small section. I forget which committee it was that Chris White came and explained this.
Economic Development.
With Economic Development. He brought the lawyer who specializes in trying to clear title in this way, which is what this is. This is a situation in which none of the property owners has a continuing property interest in the strip. And some of these parcels are down to, a couple of hundred square feet. So in order for the county to have the project proceed, they have to clear these titles. And the way to do it is through this eminent domain procedure. That it's the public benefit of clearing the title, whether or not you were going, whatever you do next, if you were going to try to do some train function in that, the county should have the ownership of these parcels, and right now nobody does. So this is a sensible way to proceed, and the arguments about the track or train or whatever you do after that, we still should do this eminent domain proceeding so that the county has that corridor.
Legislator Donaldson and Petit?
Yeah, basically, that's some of what she said may have been true, some of it is not true though. The point is the train has a right-of-way, the tracks had a right-of-way as long as it was the tracks were on there. So there is no such thing as, in other words, you would not need an eminent domain because the tracks are already there. And that was part of the agreement, for them. And if, according to the agreement, once the tracks are gone, they go back to the owner. Now, you're claiming that they don't know who the owners are or they can't chase them down. I'd like to see each one of them. I want to see each one of them in each letter saying that they do not want the property. They're willing to give it up for whatever the amount of money is. I will be a no on this because I knew this was going to happen, and I brought it up at the very beginning that it was going to happen. And we were advised, oh no, it's not going to happen. Well, it is.
Legislator Petit and then Nolan?
I mean, I have gotten some names. I have not gotten verification from planning or from the executive's office. One of the properties is Brad Jordan's. One of the properties belongs to the Bubble Laundromat. One of the properties belongs to John Hudler and his heirs. So you know, they're hard people, and they are property that is owned by these people or their heirs. So to say that it can't be tracked. I mean, that is not the case. Granted, one of them is from several hundred years ago, you probably won't be able to follow that one through. But it would be nice if we had the information. And again, we have another resolution which is all about these rails and trails without any documentation there. So we're just taking people's word for it.
Legislator Nolan?
So I believe the information was brought to Economic Development and Tourism, and I certainly support it being circulated if it wasn't circulated. The people who came had that.
I don't think so.
No.
Because I asked today, I asked Natalie to follow up for the list of the properties that had been requested.
But you have it, Kathy, you said?
No, I don't have it, but I thought that they had it with them.
Did she
That
do it?
that should be easy to obtain.
Yeah, we had asked for it, and then I had Natalie follow up, but we never got it in times for Ways and Means.
Okay, my
So-
mistake. I thought they had
I've
materials
never seen
with them
it.
at the meeting, and I thought that those were those materials. I've heard a description of the properties, and the difficulty is not that we don't know who lives next to this strip. It's exactly what Legislator Petit said. The documentation of ownership in most cases began more than 100 years ago. And so that when the properties changed ownership, the right-of-way language or easement language was not included in the new documentation. And this is not a question of there being a train running there and preserving that right. There's not a train running there, and there's been lawsuits to try to show that the train had not been properly abandoned. Those were won by the county, and these segments are all isolated now. And yes, we've known from the beginning that there would be questions about what to do in situations where somebody has an easement that they can document and doesn't want either a train or a trail going by there. There are segments further west where that's going to be very problematic. This section, however, the documentation doesn't exist for those people, and so they can contest in an eminent domain procedure if they want, and if we can locate somebody, the county is willing to pay them for this. But at this point, the county does not anticipate being able to find somebody who has a proof of ownership. So this is another problem in this long corridor that we purchased or received for back taxes in the 70s that has not been cleared up. It wasn't cleared up over the last 30 years, and we are slowly clearing up these sections of the corridor. So I think that people who don't believe in eminent domain or think that by having these parcels under the county's ownership clearly is going to injure their constituents' interests, they should vote against it. But I think we should talk about what's real, which is this strip of land where, and if we feel that we need to bring the lawyer, the attorney who's a specialist in this back in to get the information, we should do it. But it seems very clear because of the age of the parcels and the fact that there have been these transfers over time.
Legislator Donaldson?
Yeah, it's clear as mud. The thing here is it's an eminent domain, and if somebody wants their property, I think they have the right to have it. So I'm not going to support it. It has nothing to do with the train or not a train, because the train's not going to be there now. It doesn't matter how you look at it. But it's still a right-of-way issue, and if these people have the papers for that right-of-way, and they don't want to sell it, I'm not going to be voting to take that property away from them. Now, so I need to see a list that says that these people are willing to sell, they will, and say, yes, I'll take, whatever the numbers are, and then I'm happy with it. But I don't have any list. I don't have anything showing me who owns each individual pieces of property, were they contacted, what do they want for it, and all that numbers. I'd like to have a list showing me that. I mean, otherwise I'm just voting blindly. on something that somebody says, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. Well, you know, it's hard for me to vote on something because somebody says this is what we're doing when I don't see the data.
Does the executive's office?
Well, I'm gonna go on from memory from the last meeting where we did have a lawyer. For many of these properties, there is no owner to go back to.
That's why I need the list. Show me.
Owners, but there are
Show
no
me a
owners.
list of show me the
Yes. What
properties
about-
Properties?
and what the problem
what
with it is
about-
on each
Or
property.
do all
What
11
about-
have no owners? That would be an easy list to
I
give
believe
us.
that's the case.
Oh, then
Yeah,
give
we
us
can
that
give you a
list.
list of the properties,
Yeah.
sure.
And if they do,
That's all he says. I'm not in.
I think,
I'm just
you know, I
trying
think
to
what would be helpful is
hurry
if
this
it
along.
is the list of the properties and the ones where
Where they are.
if there have or not any ownership able to be identified.
There should be an
They
average.
tried to find the owners for all of them.
There should be an
They made a list of
advertisement
properties, sure.
running out in various papers when you do the public advertisement saying, you know, who owns these properties? Does anybody have ownership of
believe
these
that's-
properties? So they can, in other words, maybe people got
Essentially,
something, I don't know.
for background purpose, and this is how it was explained at the last meeting, I forget which committee it was.
Economic
Yeah,
But if you
Economic
go back
development.
beyond 140 years, there were larger parcels. People owned meets and bounds that went all the way down to where the tracks
Right,
was. When
right,
the tracks
you
were
split
put
them up.
through, there was an easement created. Ultimately, over time, the easement ended up being the meets and bounds of their properties, and as they were subdivided, the meets and bounds stayed the same, which was further away from the tracks. What ended up happening was because new meets and bounds, new posts, essentially those little rods, are put in the land throughout, there ended up being little parcels that weren't connected to any parcel anymore, that weren't part of a contiguous piece of property. And that's the problem. This goes back beyond
Right,
140
well, I'd like
years.
to see a map. You know, the map with the ones that are contested. that's
Here's
what
the
I'd like to
way which is a little bit different, the way I heard it, was that over the years, because of this easement, when people were deeding the land, they were deeding it minus the easement. And so basically, it kind of left that land in limbo in a void. And so it was never ever deeded over. When lands changed, it was never inclusive of that easement.
Right, but my problem is I've been told many times about things like that.
Well,
but I
we
don't have
asked,
the information.
we asked for
And,
the
you know, my
list.
mindset
Yeah, no,
is that,
that is outstanding.
If it's,
That is
you know, if
outstanding.
somebody doesn't know it and they, you know, okay, fine, but I don't know if, in other words, sometimes people may not know they own the property, I guess. That's what we're making, I mean, that's the assumption I'm making now by what you're saying to me on this, which makes, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, people might have sold the property 4 times.
Can
we're
we,
gonna,
so,
you know,
can we
you know, when
have
you
an
switch it
understanding that
over.
you'll provide that information?
Provide the list, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Alright, so as of right now, I have Legislator Petit and Donaldson as a no. Are there any current no's?
I'll be.
Maloney? I mean, we don't have to, we still have another caucus, but just at a
I
start.
would, I mean, I see some names that Legislator Petit was able to get, I guess, from planning. And I would like to know whether or not those folks have been contacted, whether they
They're in
have
negotiation.
agreed.
Well, wait a
They're
minute.
in
We were just told there was
negotiation.
no owners.
Yeah,
They're in negotiation.
Legislator
Wait,
Nolan?
I think,
Wait, is there owners or
There's two
not?
different issues.
Some of them are, yeah.
so, whether or not they're owners is part of the question that the special lawyer was called in to look at. There are adjoining property owners whose families at some prior point may have owned that and given an easement. But over time, that has been fragmented down. So it's my understanding that all 11 properties have been evaluated, and where there is somebody there to talk to, that there have been conversations, and there have been attempts to find the documents that might identify an owner. There's only one, I think, where that still seems to be a question of whether an owner might come forward. I believe it is the Brad Jordan property, if I'm remembering correctly. In the other 10, there's no paper trail that can identify ownership interest. So Legislator Donaldson is correct. As part of an eminent domain procedure, there would be that advertisement about, you know, coming forward to show that you have it, and the county would have an interest in obtaining, you know, these properties at this point for whatever future purposes. and would negotiate with somebody if there were somebody to negotiate with. So far, there's, for none of these properties, is it clear that there's a person to negotiate with who has an ownership interest.
But these are, this is the list of properties, right?
We don't know
I don't
what
know
you're
what
looking
you're-
at.
You guys have a
ours.
list that, you're working from a list that I don't think any of us have a list of properties.
But
So
we
if you have a
got,
list.
Eastman, PDF, Herzog's, Jacob Burriant, Edwin Buddington has 2 of the properties, Sarah B. Reynolds and Robert Brody, Village of Kingston, Peter J. Dolson and the heirs.
And who's that, where'd you get that?
We just got from Joe.
Where'd you
Was-
get it?
Popped up. A citizen sent it to me.
So I mean, I
All
don't know.
right, so you have information we don't.
So
I just
moving on.
got it.
I sent it to you.
Oh, is
I
that the one
request-
you were
No,
saying?
I sent it to the department.
If you want to share that list with the
I sent you copies.
legislature or any members,
Why-
feel
why else
free.
did the county get
I
it?
wanted to vet it before I put it out.
Yeah.
I'm
It
just,
should be
I'm
compared.
asking, but we were just told by an executive appointee that there's virtually no ownership here, and I'm seeing a bunch of names. If it turns out to be true, then that's an issue, that we're here in caucus ready to decide how to vote on something, and we're getting information that doesn't seem to be true.
Well-
If not, that's why I didn't want to throw it out there, because I need to vet this, but it seems like a
So,
list of,
In
what's
the
that? Mike?
meantime, while he has,
No, I don't know what
Oh.
that is.
while he's doing that due diligence, we have a commitment that you will give us the information that you've said.
Sure.
And then we can discuss further.
They're gonna have statements from the owners saying that, yeah, we don't have a problem with this.
If there is owners.
So that's the
I
process.
can't guarantee you an owner of.
I mean,
Obviously,
is
the
Herzog
village of
gonna say,
Kingston
yeah,
is
go
also
ahead,
that
take
would
it?
I'm sure he
Thomas
will.
Cornelius,
He
that
probably
would be
will,
Yeah.
because it's not gonna, maybe it won't affect them, but, I mean, somebody, if I had a, I mean, I talked to somebody a long time ago that, they're actually in one of the areas where the track is existing. And they said clearly, if that track was not there, they did not want a trail running to the back of their house, because they felt, they felt endangered by it. And they would not have given up, and they would not have given up that piece of property.
Well, all I hear from City of Kingston cops, this is a separate situation, and people that live in the City of Kingston is, do you really think I'm gonna walk down to the Hanover Plaza through that trail? I'd rather you fix the sidewalk, because that's the way I'm taking, but that's, we've already made the decision to make this.
Legislator Green?
Yeah, I sort of had the floor and then it got.
Yeah, sorry about
Yeah,
that.
Thank you. To me, the question is, if there's a negotiation
Send it to me, will
going
you?
on, eminent domain is a threat that you better negotiate.
Yeah, it's
or-
leverage.
or-
You're exactly right.
Or
Let-
we'll
let's just-
take your property. And so, I would like to know that the negotiations and the transfer are done on a voluntary basis where there is a designated owner.
If I may, just to be clear, Legislator Maloney, especially the administration in no way is trying to do this in a way to threaten or force the sale of any properties. This measure is completely to gain clear title of these properties. My
I think it
understanding
was
is-
Legislator Green that made the point, and I agreed that sometimes just the act, what we're voting on is the ability for you to use eminent domain, and why would you want that ability? To be quite honestly, in a negotiation, it works as leverage. I use the word leverage, and I'd appreciate if that's how you talk about what I had just said, but I was adding on to what Legislator Green said. And I do think that when we give you guys the ability to use eminent domain, I think it's common sense to think or know or realize that that ability becomes immediate leverage, even if you don't say it. When the people you're dealing with know that you have the ability just to take it, suddenly they're a little more likely to strike a deal with you. Was all our point. What I think that's, Manna, is that what you were trying to say?
Pretty much.
Yeah, and that's all I was agreeing with her on.
Do you have any further comment, Legislator Green?
No, thank you.
Okay, with that, we will stay on this, and we'll move back to the top of the resolutions list. Resolution number 374, policy prohibiting appointees of elected officials and BOE staff from holding elected public office. Legislator Maloney, I believe you're a sponsor of this resolution. Did you want to speak any further on it?
Some things have changed on it. In other words,
Oh yeah, good point. There was Legislator Donaldson made an amendment in laws and rules. Do you want to just update
Well,
the
there's a couple
caucus?
amendments. One of the amendments are they can, in other words, it doesn't count school board members, it doesn't count, non-paid positions, like if you're on a commission and so on and so forth, in that mindset. So it doesn't count.
Thank you for that, I'm glad you
So you would still be appointed, to a county position appointment. I'm not talking about a CSEA, you can't set that.
Sure.
And then the change got changed till December 31st and it doesn't start immediately.
Legislator Maloney, a sponsor. I believe it passed laws and rules.
And Ways and Means tonight.
Yeah, 3-2, and then Ways and Means it passed 5-2.
Yep.
If I'm correct.
It's getting more and more popular as it goes. I think most legislators I've spoken to agree with keeping the Board of Elections. In reality, Board of Elections by definition is a political space, but to keep it as unpolitical, the wrong kind of politics out of the Board of Elections, it makes a lot of sense. That's that part. But in general, we see it in Albany. We certainly see it on the county level. These executive-driven government makeups that we now have. A lot of counties have moved to charter forms of government. There's more and more appointees in Albany, on the county level, and I think we really have to be cognizant of making sure we don't let it get too out of control as far as politicizing these. We have a lot of people right here in the county, quite honestly, that have a title, and it's not often they're working according to what their title states. They end up involved in campaigns. We see it going right now. There are county appointees right now in economic development that are working on 17 different campaigns. They're out. We saw it bleed into areas over the last couple of years, and I just think this is a good government policy that I think if we passed it, I think if other counties are paying attention, we may see them start to do it as well, and it does a hell of a lot more good than bad. I don't really know what the cons are of a piece of legislation like this, because there are built-in agendas and politics everywhere, and I think this cleans up the process a little bit.
Legislator Nolan.
Limiting the ability of anybody to put themselves forward for an elected public office is very troubling to me. This is, holding public office is the epitome of free speech. It is the way we make speech powerful. And restrictions on this are, I think, potentially even, going into protected category. I haven't done the research on that. But certainly, for me personally, the overriding reason for doing that needs to be overriding. And I've been convinced by anything that has been brought forward that there are problems. That it's one of these things of, so-and-so hears that this, complaints. We don't have anybody coming to us from the public who is complaining about this, from any of the places where this law might currently apply. The people who are complaining are, in some instances, people who aren't even in a party. So I think the importance of democratic activity is something we should keep in mind. And I'm a no on this. I do think that there's more justification for the Board of Elections staff, but even there, I think there are safeguards built in by design into that office that have worked very well, I think, in situations where there has been staff that were running for or holding office. So again, I think we need to be very, very careful about trying to fix something that's not, where we don't have a clear problem in front of us. And this to me still seems very vague, that it could be a problem. So I think we should not support this at this time.
Legislator Maloney.
I'll make it brief because I don't think we're going to move anybody. I think people where they're at. But I will say that we restrict all the time what elected officials can do. There's, I believe there's quite a bit of state law that restricts what office you can hold, and all those things are good. And I don't think it's restricting anybody's rights. I think it's for the right reason. We're not, the DA's office has quite a bit of restrictions, for one. And I don't think we're restricting anybody's ability to hold office. We're restricting someone's ability that holds office to be a county appointee, and that's up to them. So, I'm totally for this.
You see it on the, you also see it on the federal level.
Yeah, there's
People
a
not
million
being able-
restrictions.
People not
Yeah.
being able to run for office if
Yeah.
they're holding a federal appointed position.
Yeah.
Chairman Bartels?
I just ask a question maybe for Vicky to research, because I'm sorry, it's so long ago I don't recall, but I know that early in my legislative terms, we at least debated a resolution that had to do with being a party chair and an election commissioner. If you don't know the answer right now, can you just look it up and see what happened with it?
That sounds
We
really.
never did
It was
anything
like
with it.
last year, I think.
No, it was many
No, that
years
was never
ago.
done anything with that.
Not since I've been here.
We had something.
I just would like to.
Where were you at on that?
I don't
That's
believe
in
it,
my-
I don't believe it passed. I don't know how far it went,
No,
but
I
I
don't
don't believe
think
it
it
ever
ever
I
went.
was supporting
Yeah.
the
It
both
wasn't,
because they're both
um,
highly partisan positions.
In other words,
But-
because it
I don't know
technically was in other words, it was brought up a number of times, because Sebago used to be the party chairman of the Republican Party.
No,
and
it
at
was
the
when
same
John,
time, he
it
was
was
the
when
commissioner.
John was both.
But then it came up what John was doing, because I'm the one that brought it up. And I'm the one that actually went to the floor of the convention against it, because I didn't feel, against the idea of the chairman of the
So you consistent.
party also being the commissioner of,
Board of
Board of Elections.
I just like to know
So,
what.
but
if
it
we
never,
ever
it
voted on
was never voted on and never dealt with. Like I know this year, there's somebody that was, that was on the town board from the,
Board of Elections.
from the Board of Elections.
Appointed.
And I do have a problem with that,
That person's no longer employed.
but they left. Yeah, they left.
Did you have another?
Yeah, I mean, it came out of committee. I know that at some point I spoke with legislator Ronk about the broad reach of all appointments. About he mentioned about sometime looking at the different appointments and determining which ones could be policymakers and which ones couldn't be. I mean, it's something that I'd be curious. And I also just want to bring up again that I have concerns it's not something we could fix with a resolution, and not to make things even more controversial, but I'm just going to put it out right now. I do have concerns if we're talking about the potential appearance of a conflict. I have concerns about it the other way, about being an appointed position in a local municipality and an elected county official. Because I think if we really try to think it through and about the potential for conflict there, or at least the perception of conflict, that would be a charter change, because the only way that we could limit a person's right to run for county office would be through the charter. But again, I'm just throwing it out there, separate but equal conversation.
So you have an issue with that, but not.
No, I'm not saying I don't have an issue with this. I'm saying I'm raising that issue as well, potentially.
All right, well,
Any other comments or questions from any other legislators? And do you guys want to know who here is leaning towards being a no on this, just so we have an idea? Or if you still need time to think, just say you still need time to think.
I still need time to
I
think.
need time to think.
no, but
You say that a lot.
All right, so moving
I
on,
think it's.
Resolution 380, the
No,
straw law.
That's a good thing, if anything.
That passed environment 2 months ago, and then it passed laws and rules this month unanimously.
but that's just for a public hearing, so.
Not anymore.
No,
it's
these
for
are the
vote.
amendments.
What?
It was sent back to committee, so now it's.
No, we postponed it in laws and rules,
Oh,
and then
Yeah.
legislative, I believe you're the sponsor of these amendments.
Yeah, and I have a lot of issues with them now, and that's that adding on to a law that is completely being ignored by the community. I mean, it's like not being, so I just don't know how we can, yeah, but nobody,
I've actually seen positive things in my day.
those businesses were doing it
No,
anyways.
new ones.
I've, because of the law, maybe a handful, I'm just telling you.
They're changing, but not to the degree that they should be.
And there's no outreach going. Like before I would just like to see, even with the plastic bag,
Well, you know,
we're
it's-
still giving out double I'll just tell you about my every restaurant in my plaza does not know, and I've worked with them on it, so hopefully they're back in understanding that they're in. But they're lucky they have a legislator in their plaza. The dollar store, up until I have to go back in there, but up until a couple of days ago, we're giving out double ply plastic and charging. The Subway, yes.
They misinterpreted the
No,
law.
no.
You gotta call the Department of the Environment.
I know, but what I'm saying is that's the plastic, and I think that's been decent. But just because it got the media, I really don't enough.
That's how they like that.
That's right.
So like,
I know. We got the Freeman, and thank God people have stopped reading it. So I have concerns that I don't see the due diligence going into the original law, and we're going to add to it. I don't know.
you're the sponsor of these amendments.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm
So
not
you-
operations,
are
am I,
you-
Jonathan?
No,
I'm policy.
but I'm trying to
My
figure out,
policy
are
is
you
nothing
withdrawing
without.
it, or are you still?
No,
wanting to go
I'm
forward?
throwing it out to the caucus
I
to
can
see how
say-
people feel about it.
I can say in the city of Kingston there, I've seen significant changes, but in other words, outside the city, I've not seen. it
What about
as
Burger
much.
King?
I don't know about Burger King.
Well, they give out more straws than probably every
don't
other
go to
business
Burger
combined in the city of Kingston. So
I know the restaurants themselves, most of them.
So I'd love to know
doing
what the big
fine.
stores are doing. With the plastic bag, what are we concerned with the plastic bags? The box stores, Target. If Target and ShopRite and Price Chopper were in compliance, then the law was good. I kind of look
They
at
are.
the
Target
straw
is,
at the same standard. If you have these fast food places not in, and the big chain restaurants, if they're not in compliance, then this law is not working the way it intended. I didn't care about mom and pop shops. I still don't when it comes to plastic regulations like this. But the longer I serve, the more I think that we have to talk about the tipping fee, and that we get everything we want with the environment by having a real conversation about the tipping fee. But
Next.
yeah.
Does that
assuming
mean you're
everyone's a
voting
yes on
against
this?
I didn't say that.
okay.
What do you want me to
Okay,
do?
we're gonna move.
But is that?
Making sure you're not voting against us.
407.
But I do
setting-
need more
Well,
time.
where are we? So we're all for
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yep.
But we don't care that it's the existing laws that work. All right.
I mean, if you have concerns about enforcement, I mean,
It's not really even enforcement. It's outreach. It's
Education.
education.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want it enforced. That's the point. I just want people to know.
okay.
I have a draft letter that the health department's getting ready to send out, but we just I wanna wait until next week to know whether we need to talk about just straws, or
Okay.
whether we need to talk about straws, stirrs, condiments, everything like that. So, it's gonna go to all the restaurants that
All right.
are under the Board of Health.
Can you share that with us once it goes out?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Or even before would be
Yeah.
great.
Put it on the back. Save some. Put it on the back of the page, and on the other side we'll have the lists of all those properties.
407, setting a public hearing on campaign finance reform. So you guys had for a while now, have been in receipt of the most updated version that came out of the subcommittee. This is again a public hearing. It passed laws and rules unanimously for the public hearing portion of it. Legislator Donaldson, I believe, was considering having a separate meeting going forward too, just for further discussion on this finalized version. I don't know what the vote was in Ways and Means on the public hearing for.
It went through?
Yeah. So, is there anyone that's going to be a no on the public hearing? But again, Legislator Donaldson will let us know going forward.
Yeah, if
with-
we need to do that, I just said, I think Jay was gonna do a track change for me.
Yep, and I'll follow
So I
up with
want
her tomorrow.
everybody to see that, so all legislators know what it is.
I'll follow up with her tomorrow on that. Alright, moving on. 408, confirming Copenhagen as director of OFA. Any issues? 409, declaring a climate emergency. This is a memorializing resolution. It moved forward with since there was a Democratic caucus member and a Republican caucus member, I believe. Legislator Maloney, one of the sponsors, but I believe we all signed on to it as co-sponsors in Energy and Environment. I'm assuming we're all a yes on this. We believe in science. Okay.
Thank you to Socrates for leading the way on this.
Yeah, no, it's a good.
Change the world.
I wonder how it'll
Yeah,
affect the votes
does
on
anyone in
straws.
the caucus want to be added as a co-sponsor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be on there.
Declaring support. Yeah, support. Yeah. Moving on, 410, creating the Criminal Justice Task Force. Legislator Donaldson is the sponsor of this.
Anybody want to know anything about it?
No.
What do you want to know?
Tell us what your plan is.
Well,
What's
it's
your
a-
We
plan?
actually had a good discussion while I was in the
Yeah, we're looking at it. Yeah, we also.
Law enforcement.
Law enforcement side.
I was gonna say, I don't.
The
know.
idea is there's been many changes in the state right now. In other words, there's the drop the age, there's the bail
Bail.
issue, there's the pretrial notification issues. There's also issues about us that we're talking about and other places are talking about when it comes to restorative justice. So in other words, so I'm looking at this as an overall criminal justice reform task force, and the appointees are the DA or a designee, the sheriff or a designee, the public defender or a designee. What else? I'm trying to remember all of them. The chairwoman appoints 2 people from organizations that have been dealing with the criminal justice issues. There's also an appointment of, I'm trying to think of who else is on that. Remember?
The majority
Minority
each.
leaders.
Yeah, the minority leader appoints 1 person. I know there's a total of 9, I think it is. Great. Can't remember because last time I redid it.
Did you add language that the administration
Yeah, we added
Yes.
language that
Yes.
the administration would be, part of,
sending departments?
yeah, probably the probation will
Yeah.
probably be involved in it.
Yeah, I think the probation thing aspect
pull
of
it
that
up, I
input
mean-
was important.
So what they're going to do is that's basically what they're going to be, the charge is to come back to us with policies that we can adapt.
Yep, and I think it's important that, while we go through these major changes, we do have, a group specific to the legislature, making sure we're on top of everything on our responsibilities as the policymakers.
Okay.
All right, moving forward, 412, approving revenue contract with Cornell Cooperative for the Ashokan Watershed Management Program. Any issues? 413, approving a contract with Family of Woodstock for the Family House. Were there any issues? 414, approving the contract with Wood Services for foster care. Were there any issues? 417, approving $590,000 with Rubco for CDBG. Any issues? 418, a contract amendment with Tyler Technologies for public safety software. There was no issues in law enforcement. 419, a contract with Asset Works for fleet software maintenance and support.
That's at the end.
420, the reallocation of funding with the Ellenville Million to Ellenville Hospital.
Conversation.
Legislator Archer?
There was an amendment on that report. We're striking the resolve under the number 1 healthcare sector capital assistance drawing from the remainder of the unused funds. We're removing.
Unallocated.
We're moving unobligated.
And that passed unanimously,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And I believe I saw the Mr. Kelly here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah, sure.
Yes, and
it's adding a category, but when you read the resolution, it's not actually allocating it to the hospital.
Right, it's not allocating the
It's
funding.
creating,
It's
it's creating a
It's
new
creating it.
category, and there's a commitment, UCETA will review, because there were some concerns that came up recently about a number of folks that were part of submitting Ellenville Million projects that they felt like they should have known that there was extra funding out there, and they want to be considered as the next in line. So UCETA will take a look at it.
Reverend Collins says
a body of people who were not necessarily considered when the committee met. Okay, that could be so. The two bodies that are reaching for it now weren't even in that running. At least when you look at Ellenville itself, and the hospital weren't even counted there. And the hospital wasn't even considered there, mainly because we didn't want a conflict, because
he
the
was sitting on
hospital
the
was on the
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah.
Two of us were on the committee as far as the hospital was concerned. And I think the thing to understand is everything was weighed, what was running, what did we need to do to try to bolster how Ellenville was seen, who would come and why they was coming. That's why the projects that were picked. And then, like you said, our problem became how do you add to the list, because it wasn't a very full list, because at the time there wasn't a whole lot of people ready to do anything. There were no plans. There were a lot of ideas, but there were no plans. So the plausible ideas and plans were what was chosen by the committee. And then what most of these folks are moaning or groaning about now is the mere fact that once it became a part of economic development, pulling somebody new in became the problem. Most of the people that came were brought in, looked at, as I haven't been a part of it since we turned it over, or basically got the Ways and Means. But they were brought in, they were looked at, and then told they weren't ready. The two projects that were added since the committee turned it over, I wasn't a part of getting them approved. We have a gym and something else that came into town that we're struggling to try to get to where they work. But until recently, I wasn't aware that the hospital was reaching out for it, because of my inside date, nobody wanted me to get hung up in the middle. I was here with a meeting with the mayor and the exec today, because the village is actively going, and for once they have a plan.
So you're good with this?
That made me very happy. So allocating to get it back to where it is available to some bodies within. We can debate over who as we go on, but I would love to see it. I'm not an advocate of, I gave you $1 million, but you didn't do this and didn't do that, I'm going to take it back. I'm going to take a piece of it. It was allocated for in the beginning. I would love to see it stay there. If nothing else, make us fight over who is worthy and who isn't.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I want to just speak briefly now, because I probably won't speak on the floor, and I know I'm in the minority probably viewpoint on this. I voted against the original allocation for the Ellenville Million, which wasn't in any way reflective of my consideration of the need for support in Ellenville. And I know it was very much at the time couched as in relation to Ellenville not receiving the casino, something which I felt very conflicted about, because at the time I also felt that receiving a casino siting might have downstream effects on a community that might not be so good. But from the outset, you know, it's like, yes, it's an influx of money, but studies in neighboring states where, in communities where there are casinos cited, do not show favorably on the host communities' rise. So it was something that always concerned me, but I supported the request for the application. But when it came time for moving the money for Ellenville Million, I had concerns, which we don't have to go back into that, but I'm on the record about the concerns. And I spoke with Mr. Kelly. You know, I'm very proud of Ellenville Regional Hospital. I'm very proud. I think I'm one of 4 sitting legislators who was here when we made the loan from the legislature to allow the hospital to continue. And it's, in terms of my legislative work, it's one of the more proud moments, because as a result, the hospital is still there, and it's so critically important to the community, and access to health care and all that they're doing is to be admired. My concern continues on my original concern, and it was even more highlighted by the fact that as I was seeing this resolution, and even as it was being spoken to me, it was very much about the good work of the hospital and the fact that there's money left over, and so why not direct that money for a capital program? I know that we're not allowed to just directly direct money for outside capital programs, so it's really hard for me to square this loophole that exists for economic development. But again, I'm not going to get into this on the floor. I'm not planning on stepping down from the chair to have this debate. I know we all feel really good about Ellenville Regional Hospital. I still have concerns about process, and still have concerns about the methods, and so on and so on. So at this moment, I'm a no, but I'm not going to get into a long. I just want you all to hear it now, so that when you hear that I'm a no, you're not wondering where the heck that came from.
With all of that, I end up in a trap again, because when it came time to argue for the original loan for the hospital, I was arguing there. When it came down to the casino, I believe that the majority of us that were lobbying for and working for the casino, it was a way to have jobs and whatever. It wasn't necessarily what we want. The idea that came along after we lost that was the best thing that ever happened to us. For some reason, you can't get the money to do it. But the thing is that with all of this, the Ellenville Million did something for Ellenville, and I think the general feeling over the time before that is that it was a part of the county that wasn't a part of the county, and all of that was may have been a part of what brought up to try to help. That million has made a difference. That the things that were supported, the things that did come out of it, have produced results, and that people are able to find places and look for places, because part of signage is the help for the Shadowland has produced a restaurant row that is growing. All of those things are part of something that the county's input helped to make a dark part of the county brighter. The hospital is more or less of a separate entity, in that the hospital in itself has recreated itself, and that it's able to do things. It's leading when it comes in the business that it's in around the country. So but the problems that come along with that is that people that used to fund you when you were in the dirt, you're doing good. And right now everybody wants to pick up those folks who are doing bad. So that means you can't get money. Like, whether you need it or not, how good you're doing says you're doing all right, let's go help somebody that's bruised. That's a part of what the hospital is caught into now. But through all of this now, that money also forced something within Ellenville, in that first it started attempting to cooperate between the town and the village and the school. It started something that wasn't there before. It also forced the village to go out and make a plan that's workable and be able to present it to somebody, which was something that it wasn't there before. Like I said, so I wholeheartedly support putting the money back to where it's available. We can still do the screening process, the working process. It isn't asking for any more than what was allocated for it already, but it's asking that it be available to make Ellenville, help Ellenville get to where it should be. So I'm a yes, of course, and I wish that everybody would look at it and consider it. I would love to be able to sit here and say, give the hospital, give it the village.
Well, you don't have to, so
I'd love to be able to sit here, but I can't say that with a clear conscience, because, like I say, I'm stuck in the middle of both of them.
Understandable. Anyone else have any more comment?
I'll just say one thing, which is I believe there will be 9 jobs if this money is allocated this way. So that seems like economic development to me.
The jobs are there whether it's allocated or not. This is creating a space.
The money for the jobs is there, but there's no place for the people to work currently. And so I take your point about the capital thing, and that is a little worrisome, but if you think of it as workspace enlargement, which might qualify in something, I mean, they basically need desks and computers and, you know, workspace for these workstations for staff that they have money to hire. So I don't think that they can hire people and not have a place to put them. So,
are there any other no's? All right, moving on. 422, because we already did 421, so 422, agreement to allow Department of Planning to act as census designated affiliate. 423, amending capital project for the UCAP bus purchases. The bond. 425, the Sheriff Association's donation of their the education trailer. Opioid education trailer. 426, Sheriff Port Security grant acceptance. It's accepting grant money. 427, approving the PBA memorandum of agreement. I think it's a really good thing that they were able to get this done. Commend the executive's office and the PBA for what seemed like a very constructive process. 428, amending CAP Project 42 for the countywide radio system. Passed unanimously.
and we would just point out, I think Deputy Ryder mentioned that there would be, this is one where Steve Peterson is going to come to the next Public Works meeting and give a description of this. So if people have interest or have questions, they will have an opportunity to sit and hear the presentation and engage in that dialogue.
An update on the entire, this is one portion of the interoperability plan, and he's going to come update the entire plan. This is to build out some Socrates Tower site, this particular resolution.
429 is the bond. Moving on to your back page. 430, approving the agreement for state funding for the Victim and Witness Assistant Grant Program.
Just so you know, Laura was a no on these, so
Okay.
we're just gonna put them in non-consent.
Was 421 in consent?
434.
What's that?
Was 421 in consent?
We took that out of order because Laura
It's definitely not in
Laura
consent.
wanted to speak on it, but she had another engagement she had to get to.
Okay.
But Laura, Donaldson, and Petit are currently a no. And the executive office is going to try and get us more information. But yeah.
On 430 and 431.
So 430 and 441.
Oh, 41.
31, sorry. 430 and 431, you said Legislator Petit was a no.
She's a no on both of those.
Did she speak?
I don't know if she spoke in Ways and Means.
She didn't, but she said to me afterwards that this is something she feels strongly about, and I don't think she felt that it was getting at what she needed. I don't know.
Okay.
She went with the increased funding.
I don't know if it's increased or she wasn't happy with the programs.
I see.
The crime victims grant
Substantive included.
is $700,000.
That-
We're
and it
adding
doesn't include
It's adding.
3 full-time employees to our crime victims unit,
but she felt that it was
expanding services.
not delivering what she would.
And it's grant.
And it's grant money for 5 years.
It's on top of.
Yes,
The-
we're expanding, like,
It's new grant.
new
Okay.
grant money.
Was there any other no's? All right, 432, approving the stop DWI plan. 433, establishing capital project 422 for Kingston roof safety at the community college.
That's a non-consent too for Laura.
Yeah.
The bond, establishing capital projects for replacement of the HVAC at the IS building.
I just want to ask what the replacement is, what the system is.
The exact system, I don't know, 2 of our rooftop units went down at IS, and so they're replacing them with RTUs. But exact system, I'm not sure.
Can you find out for me?
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's listed in the supporting materials to the resolution.
I'm
The
just.
actual
oh,
detail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, it's in.
Well, if you can't find that, just, you guys can get her that
Alright.
information.
Thank you.
I'll go back and look.
437, approving a grant application for the Catskill Watershed Corp. For the Maltby Hollow Bridge Replacement Project.
It's a very good project.
438, accepting bids for private sale of county-owned property. 439, the conveyance of county-owned property to the original owner. 440, approving the contract with S&O Construction for 5 roof HVAC units at county buildings. And then,
The contract.
I will look at
yeah,
those 3.
we'll continue.
Thank you.
And then 441, setting the equalization rates for 2020. We have a late resolution from the BOE to approving an agreement with the state for reimbursement of early voting expenses. It's a good thing. And then that is it.
I would like us to discuss as a caucus whether we should, as a caucus or in conjunction with the other caucus, call for the resignation of Legislator Rodriguez. I say that with great reluctance. As many of you know, I did not think that in the beginning of the year that we had a situation that would require that. We were faced, however, with a situation where we had asked to have complete information given to us and did not get what we thought was complete information. And we got additional information. Since then, there is additional information that's available in the media of concerns similar to the ones that we were trying to address. Should I?
No, sorry, continue.
And the difficulty with the way that the legislature has handled this so far is that I don't think there's a clear sense from people who were injured or who may have been injured that there was action that was taken. And the submission of a request to investigate, I think, was entirely appropriate. I appreciate everybody who participated in that, and the information that has come out as far as we have it to date suggests that there are additional instances very much in line with the ones that we knew about either internally or from Legislator Rodriguez himself or from women who were interviewed. And if we ask for the resignation at this point, what we are saying to those women, I believe, is yes, we acknowledge there was an injury, there were multiple women involved and that were injured, and this is not okay with us. This is not behavior that we endorse, and I don't know if we have any ability to force such a resignation.